It's the most wonderful time of the year, a time of gift-giving, cheer, and merriment, a time for St. Nicholas, for stocking stuffing, for lights and ornaments and candy canes and silver lanes aglow. Christmas, the celebration of the birth of Jesus of Nazareth, as well as many other cultures and traditions, have synthesized their celebrations around the winter solstice of December 21st, when the sun is at its shortest during the year. To celebrate different traditions, the history of Christmas is quite fantastic. For the ancient Romans, it was the celebration of Saturnalia, one of their most important gods, the god of agriculture, whose feast day was always celebrated around December 25th and lasted for weeks on end. It was also a Roman celebration for the conquering god of the sun, Mithra, who was supposedly born of a virgin out of a stone on December the 25th, and who is often paralleled to Jesus of Nazareth. Of course, the most common celebration of Christmas before is European in origin and Northern European, coming from the Norse and Germanic tribes of the non-Roman world centuries before Jesus, who would often celebrate the winter solstice with festivals that would go for weeks on end to celebrate the return of the sun, as well as the enjoyment of different types of meat and cattle who had become fattened enough to be killed and eaten. At the same time, during these festivals and orgies, they would also celebrate and drink as much wine and beer as they could, since these liquors had become fermented and were able to be used. This was the ancient pagan origins, as well as the use of holly, evergreens, and candles to celebrate light, green, and the ability to grow even during the time of winter. This was eventually personified in the Yuletide, commonly celebrated in Northern Europe with a Yule log that was supposed to burn for weeks on end, the longer the better. In Norse mythology, common in Germany, the god of the sky, the overlord, Odin, would travel to and fro on his horse, flying around the skies, determining who had been good and who would be evil, and who would receive good and who would receive damnation. Sound familiar? At the same time, Christmas, of course, has become best known as the celebration of the birth of Jesus of Nazareth, the Christian God and Savior. Jesus' birth was apparently recorded in the Gospels of Matthew and Luke, although the celebration of December 25th wasn't eventually attributed to the birth of Jesus until 221 by Sextus Africanus, a Roman Christian historian. In the time of the Roman control of Judea, a local young maiden by the name of Mary was found to be with child before being married to her betrothed Joseph. The two married quickly and went to Bethlehem at the time of the census decreed by the Roman Emperor Augustus. While there, in a manger, she gave birth to her firstborn and was visited by 3 wise men who brought presents, as well as by local shepherds who were tending their flock, who were told by an angel that the Savior of the world, Jesus, was born. This is the traditional story of the Christmas narrative, but it was not celebrated on December 25th, and the early Christian church did not celebrate it for centuries to come. This was mainly because the Christian church suffered heavy persecution at the hands of the Romans, and Easter, the resurrection of Jesus, was considered the most important, not the visit of the Magi, not the visit of the shepherds, nor his own birth. It wasn't until the time of Emperor Constantine in the 4th century, who had used Christianity to his advantage when supposedly in a dream a Christian symbol appeared to him, promising him victory at the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, which he had ensued to be successful at, that the church and the state began to be married. Constantine legalized Christianity with the Edict of Milan in 313, basically ending persecution of the Christian church and allowing it to grow at an even greater rate than it already was. Thus, Christian traditions became popular for people who had embraced the faith willingly and who were being more or less forced to do so because of cultural trends. Indeed, this celebration and acceptance of Christianity allowed for more traditions and customs to be practiced. And as Christianity spread to those Germanic regions, winter festivals were soon to be replaced by Christian practices, as the Catholic Church determined that it was best, while forcing these people to accept Christianity, that they also be able to retain their ancient customs and traditions, while also reapplying them to the celebration of the birth of their Lord and Savior. Thus, throughout the medieval world, throughout most of Northern and Western Europe, Christmas was a several-day-long holiday similar to those winter festivals and solstices common for the Germans and Nordic peoples. These celebrations would include dancing, orgies, singing, drinking, and eating at great rates, as Europe became thoroughly Christianized and Christmas became a domineering holiday for Christianity. Even the Protestant Reformation, once again in Germany, brought new Christmas traditions, as Martin Luther, after his break from the Catholic Church, and his followers, known as the Lutherans, had the practice of bringing in evergreens into their homes and lighting candles around them. Although this sounds like a safety hazard, it was to show that the evergreen never died, just like Christ, and that the lights represented him being the light of the world. At the same time, Christmas wreaths, also an evergreen, were becoming more and more popular. Used with Advent candles, they originally had their roots in Greek and Roman culture to represent royalty and were perhaps appropriated the same way to represent Christ's royalty, the unending circle representing the unending love of God. Therefore, wreaths and Christmas trees became quite common and popular in Western Europe, eventually making their way to England in the 19th century thanks to Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, the husband of the beautiful and very popular Empress Victoria. The Christmas tree, with its lights and ornaments, became a popular English tradition and made its way to the rest of the English-speaking world, including their colonies like Canada and its former colony, the United States. This was surprising due to the complicated history of Christmas in England. During the middle of the 1600s, England had been taken over by the Puritans, who had ousted the king and banned the celebration of Christmas, as had been common amongst Calvinist reformers in the 1500s. The earliest pilgrims in the United States also banned Christmas, and there was no Christmas in Massachusetts throughout most of the 17th century. However, eventually, England and the United States warmed up to the notion. In England, it was practices and traditions that got away from Puritanism, as well as the embracing of the figure of Father Christmas, who was the personification of Christmas, who would pull around a sled and deliver toys, similar to Santa Claus. But more than anything, what put Christmas on the map in England and gave it its modern form was The Christmas Carol, Charles Dickens' classic story of redemption of the titular character Scrooge, who goes from being a miserly old money grubber to being a changed and reformed, repentant man who decides to show love to the poor and give as much as he possibly can. Making Christmas a message of charity and forbearance, Dickens put Christmas on the map in a way that never had been, so much so that he is often called the man who invented Christmas. His also appeal to social change and to helping the poor has made The Christmas Carol and its redemptive arc one of the most endearing and well-adapted and common adapted stories in all of Christmas. At the same time, the United States embraced Christmas because transformative stories are very popular. Not just Scrooge, but also that of The Grinch, written by Theodore Geisel, aka Dr. Seuss, in which a monster turns into a lover of Christmas. And of course, perhaps the most famous Christmas tradition of transformation was actually Russian, the Nutcracker, in which a wooden toy soldier who defends children is turned into a handsome prince who marries the oldest of the children, had become one of the most popular ballets with some of the most beautiful music of all time. But more than anything, what contributed to Christmas becoming an American holiday was the tradition brought about by America's most stalwart supporters, immigrants. More than anything, Santa Claus is a representation of this immigrant narrative, contributing to the creation of an American culture. St. Nicholas of Myra, who lived during the time of Constantine, when Christianity was eventually legalized and formally celebrated for the first time in 336, was a Christian bishop known for his love of toys and children and his charity. Supposedly, after his death, Jesus commissioned St. Nicholas to go around the world at the end of each year and determine who had been naughty and who had been nice. The jolly old Greco-Turkish bishop was best known for throwing toys and goodies into people's stockings, particularly trying to help the poor, which obviously became a tradition. He was well on the American radar in the 1800s, as in 1823 Clement Moore wrote a poem called The Visit of St. Nicholas. An Episcopalian, he wanted to bring the tradition of St. Nicholas from England to the United States, and of course, this visit of St. Nicholas is best known as The Night Before Christmas, probably the most famous Christmas poem of all time. Once again, writing showed an important way in which Santa Claus and traditions became popular in the United States. Meanwhile, German immigrants also gave their spin, as in 1863 Thomas Nast, wanting to depict the lovely figure to the American people, created the modern Santa Claus image we know and love, with a red suit and beard and pack of toys. This was updated in 1925 by the Saturday Evening Post and, of course, Norman Rockwell, and Hayden Sundblom, wanting to put a smile on everyone's faces during the Great Depression, gave us our modern and most updated version in 1931 for Coca-Cola. Meanwhile, the accompanying reindeer who pull the sled of Father Christmas became more and more popular as a marketing tactic, especially in 1939 when Robert May, working for Montgomery Ward, created a poem that eventually got song lyrics and a TV special, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Television and movies was a popular way for Christmas to become even more of a central focus, thanks to movies like It's a Wonderful Life from 1946. All of this made Christmas a more and more popular holiday in the United States, and showed its deepening influence on all forms of culture. Since it became a national holiday in 1870, and even before, these synthesized cultural traditions and contributions of different types of Americans from different areas of the world have made Christmas the most popular holiday in all of the United States. And while many celebrate it as the birth of Jesus of Nazareth, their Lord and Savior, many others want to go back to the old pagan celebrations. Some just want to celebrate Christmas trees, the beautiful lights, and of course, jolly old St. Nicholas. Whatever reason they celebrate, their heart or their shoes, the people who enjoy Christmas and have for thousands of years find it as a time of hope and joy, gift-giving, merriment, love, when the darkness and coldness of the outer world does not deflect from the warmth inside the homes and inside the hearts of those who have celebrated the millions over the millennia.